Hey everybody, I'm here today to give you a couple Netcat tips. So let's get right into it. I've got a pretty fresh Kali build, just downloaded yesterday. I've only made a couple slight changes to it, and that's really just preferential stuff. No extra programs, no binaries, and for this video series and until the foreseeable future, I'm going to leave it pretty default. I don't want to go out and get extra things and have you guys, if you're trying to follow along, have to download, or maybe you don't have internet connection, or you're in a sandbox environment or a virtual machine, whatever. I just want to keep it simple for you guys so you can follow along. So the first tip is how to create a Netcat chat client. Kind of joked about this. Never really thought I'd have to use it until the other day. A friend of mine, the network we were on, the chat client that they had installed wasn't really working up to snuff, so we pulled this out of our back pocket and actually it helped us out a lot. So I'm going to open up two terminal prompts, and the first one I'm going to use Netcat or NC and then the LP switches, and then I'm just going to listen on port 1, 2, 3, 4. And this starts a listener, and then over on the other side, this would emulate my friend. He's going to I'm going to use the tag vSwitch to verbosely connect. Shouldn't really be anything like diagnostic information in here, but for sake, verbosity is always nice. And then since I'm only doing this locally, I'm just going to connect to localhost, and then that port that we set up here. Hit enter, and you're going to say voila, and you'll also see that it's now open. So when I type hello, my buddy over here will get it, and then I'm going to say hey there, and I'm going to get the message. Where this can help out a lot is if there's very detailed things, like if I'm doing, for I in something or other, and it's going to be blah blah blah. You get the point. I pass that. It's not going to execute anywhere, but they'll be able to go ahead and copy that and boop 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 boop, copy and paste across the network. It really does work. Kind of counted it out and thought it was kind of a goofy idea, but it saved my butt. I'm going to close these out. The next tip is kind of along the same vein, I think. It's basically creating what would be considered a Telnet server. In here, I'm going to cat, and then I'm going to set a listening port for, because we're all super elite hackers here. Actually, you know what? We're elite hackers. We're next level. Use the TAC E switch, right? And then I'm going to have it invoke bin bash. So now anything that connects to this on this port will be introduced to, that's right, this bin bash execution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and see v, and then localhost, and then the port. Pew! And now you'll notice if I do a W, you'll see I now have a TTY connection. So if I do who, you'll see a root, who am I, ID, all that good stuff. Another cool thing to note is when I see what the present working directory is, you'll see that it is actually in the folder where this Netcat listener was invoked from. So it's kind of important to note. One of the few modifications I did make is I created a new user. I made myself a non-root user. Right, so I'm going to switch into that user just to demonstrate something, and I'm going to change the directories to my home directory, and then run the same command. Boop. And now we're going to connect to it just like we did earlier. But now, do a who, you notice, who am I? Well, now I'm Bitcoin. If I do a present working directory, boop, you'll see that I am indeed in the home folder. That's because this bin bash is invoked as the user. So it's not necessarily going off of the file permissions of the executable. in this case. I'm sure that there are other privilege escalation possibilities with this, though. It might be kind of cool to keep an eye out for. So I'm going to close that connection with Control C, and then you'll notice up here it stops that connection as well. Brings me up to our third tip. You can actually use Netcat as a port scanner. If on any time you're in an engagement and you might not have Nmap, or say you're internal already and you still want to do some enumeration, well, that's where this comes in handy. So there's a couple extra switches in here that I think make it a little bit more user-friendly, and I'll explain them as I type them in. So I'm going to do Netcat, I'm going to be verbose with it, and then I'm also going to set await 1, and I'm just going to scan my localhost. And then we're going to use the tag Z option. The Z is for 0 IO mode, and it literally says in the man page that it's used for scanning. If you have any other ways to use this, I wasn't able to find any with a quick Google search, but if you have any ideas or cool ways that you've used this, put them down in the comments. I would really appreciate it, and I'm sure a lot of other people watching or tuning in would appreciate it as well. So now that we've set the condition, we use the switch for IO mode, we're actually now going to specify what port. So I'm going to do 1 through 3000, just arbitrary range, and you'll see nothing comes back. Well, that's because by default we really don't have any ports open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my favorite Python module to start up a simple web server and a simple HTTP server. So now we are serving the directory that I started this out of on port 8000. So when we go up here, I'm going to switch the 3 to an 8, and we do that. Look at that, we will see that it's actually open. If you increase the verbosity of this, you can actually see all of the ports, which I thought was really cool. And an even little cooler thing in here, it actually does some kind of basic guessing of what that port is. Naturally, all of these are connection refused, but if we go all the way up to the top, it's going to be the first port because that's the top of the range, right? We'll see some of these things that it guessed. All the way up. All the way up. See that it's open. So it didn't catch that. There are other utilities that will, be able to kind of fingerprint what that service is, but in this case, it found it, which that's good enough for me. So we go down here. I'm going to Control C, stop that connection, and you will see, the connection, the scanning attempts, for lack of a better word. So I guess that kind of leads us into the next way. I used Python. That's just because force of habit, and I think it's really easy to use. I use the simple HTTP server module, but it's actually possible to use Netcat to start a web server. So I'm going to exit from my Bitcoin shell, and I'm back as root. Because of the magic of TV, I have pre-staged a blah.txt. If we cat blah, you'll see that it says blah 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 blah. That's just some sample text I put in there for you. But what we're going to do is, while true, do listen on port 80, and then we're going to serve up blah.txt, and then we're done. And I forgot the Netcat. That's the most important part, and I forgot it. Netcat, I am terribly sorry. Now when we do that, it'll actually start the Netcat listener on port 80 for blah.txt, And when I go down here and I localhost, you will see my user agent string. I indeed curled our new little web server, and it actually read that file. This would be a cool idea if you had a really limited Linux server that you maybe stood up in place when your real web server kind of died or went somewhere else for summer vacation. This could be a really quick stand-in, or maybe there's a network outage and you just put up a nice little web page on your laptop, plug that in, and make that accessible. So now people, when they call you, or before they call you, hopefully, to let you know that your website's down, hopefully they'll know to read your diagnostic page that you've thrown up. I'm going to close these out, and let's talk about, well, I kind of touched on user agent strings when we had seen that earlier. It's actually possible to spoof HTTP user agent headers with Netcat. This would be cool on an engagement if you needed to kind of blend in with the traffic. Say there's only Windows devices, or in the case I'm going to use here, maybe you want to appear like a Mac device. These are extremely Googleable. I think that's a word. It is now. And you could look up different user agent headers. So once again, because of the magic of television, I have this pre-staged. So it's a good idea to have this pre-staged because if you make your initial connection, so right now, let's just, for example, I'm going to connect to cisco.com on port 80. And when I go in here and I'm trying to type this get HTTP version and then host, and I'm making all these spelling errors, and I'm gonna have to hand jam this out. User agent, and it's gonna time out eventually is the point I'm gonna say. It's nice. See, there it is. So have this pre-staged is my recommendation, and really research what you're trying to emulate. Before we actually throw this out there, let's go over what we're doing. So after our connection, we're going to send a GET request, naturally, because we're going to get the web page. The host, this is going to be the resource that we're trying to access. Our user agent string, this is what the browser, to put it simply. If you have any gripes with the way I'm explaining this, put them down in the comments. I'm not going to get upset, and I might actually learn something or a better way to describe these. This is roughly the browser that is requesting this information, and then the referrer is where this is coming from. So right now I've got blah.org. To put it bluntly and simply, this means that someone clicked a link on blah.org that referred them to the resource at www.cisco.com. So I'm going to clear my terminal, and then I'm going to copy this, and then we're going to try that one more time. So nc cisco.com on port 80, and then I'm going to center mouse or scroll wheel click to paste that in there, and then it's going to be 2 enters, and there we go, there's the resource at cisco.com. If you were to use curl or some other resource that does pretty much the same thing, this is the output that you're going to get back. Like I said, the case use for this that comes to my mind is if you're on an engagement internal to a network that maybe they only use a certain browser, or maybe certain people have certain browsers, or maybe you're trying to get caught and you want to stick out like a sore thumb. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why you'd want to use this. So that covers all the basic tips that I wanted to introduce or put out or maybe even reiterate. If you have any more cool ideas or things that you've done with Netcat, let me know. Put them in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you liked the video and you want to see more. Subscribe if you want to be kept in the loop with what we're doing here. And have fun. Have fun with it. Let me know what you're doing.